morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Friday, August the 4th. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Today we're going to talk a little bit about trees and then genealogy. Let me introduce you to Stewart Scott, guy with two first names, or two last names.
Or two last names.
From Cevet Tree Service. Pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Paul.
Stuart. It's been a long time.
It has been.
You were with us quite a bit on television, on Pepper and Friends,
yeah.
and I think just once
One time here, once before.
But we talk about, we were talking before we came on the air about caring for trees in the yard. And I asked you, I said, what's the biggest mistake that people make in caring for their trees in their front or backyard?
When they plant the tree, they don't plant it correctly.
What's the correct way?
Most trees that are planted too deep. I always tell people it doesn't go over well with the nursery, but if you get a small tree, if it's in a pot, all the roots are still there. People are impatient. They want a quick tree. But quite often a small tree that's in a pot, if it's planted correctly, will outgrow a large tree that's bald and burlapped. They're less expensive. They're easier to move. They do better.
So you're saying if you go to a nursery or a big box store and you buy a tree, you're better off buying a tree that's in a pot and not in a burlap.
Right, because all the roots are there, and you can take it out of the pot, straighten the roots up, dig a tiny hole. I planted a couple small apple trees early in the spring, and I probably didn't dig a hole that was 3 or 4 inches deep. Everybody wants to stick a tree deep in the ground so it's nice and secure and protected.
Okay, so when you take that tree out of the pot, should you put it level with the soil that's within the pot?
You need to dig down in the pot, in the soil, straighten the roots out first so they look like the spokes of a wheel. Find the root flare. If a tree grows naturally, it has a flare right at the top of the soil where it goes from the stem of the tree out to the roots. So you want to find that in the pot or even in a bald and burlap tree and plant that level with the top of the soil or a little bit above.
A little bit above the soil. Don't plant it too deep.
Don't plant it too deep. If it looks like a telephone pole, it's too deep.
Mm-hmm. And then what about fertilizing and watering it?
Typically, you don't want, and especially mature trees, you don't really want them to grow. Water is a very important thing. If we don't get an inch of rain a week, you want to put water on your tree. At our house, we irrigate out of the pond, so it doesn't have all the chlorine, fluoride. Mm-hmm. But then we drink that water, so I don't understand that.
Okay, as far as mature trees, there's not a whole lot you can do to damage them, is there? Unless you're driving your car over the base of the tree, the soil.
If new construction, walnut trees don't like new construction at all. If you have a walnut tree and it's very close to the foundation of your new home, you're probably better off to take it down because it's going to typically die within a couple years of construction. If you do want to save a tree, try to keep all the construction equipment off of the roots. The roots can extend up to 2.5 times the height of the tree.
Do they extend out for the what do you call it?
The drip line.
The drip line of the tree?
And even further. Typically they won't go more than 3 or 4 feet deep. A lot of people think the tree below the ground looks like the tree above the ground, but that's not true. And if you think about it, there's just not many nutrients, water, and air. The roots need oxygen.
Right. But a big old massive oak tree that's 200 years old, it's got to go down pretty deep, doesn't it?
No, typically not. And if you ever see a tree that's blown over, the roots, it's 3 or 4 feet deep is typically all the deeper they'll go.
Okay, it's just that there's a lot of roots that go out.
Okay, right.
Guy knows what he's talking about with trees. If people want information about trees or tree care, how do they get in touch with you?
CevetTree.com.
And that's spelled C-E-V-E-T. Just C-E-V-E-T. CevetTree.com.
881-2466.
All right, Stuart. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thanks.
Come
Paul.
back again. Okay, we'll talk about tree. How you prune a tree.
Very good.
Next time you come back. Okay.
And Japanese beetles.
Oh, Japanese beetles. Oh, they're bad news this year. I think they've all come over and landed in my place. But now we're going to talk about something a little bit nicer than the Japanese beetles, and that's a genealogical conference. Did I pronounce that right? A genealogical conference.
Right. It's Genealogy COMO.
Genealogy COMO.
Right.
Okay. What is Genealogy COMO?
So it's a conference to be held October 7th, and free of charge, GenCOMO.org.
Okay. Well, let me introduce you. We got Debbie FURNELL with us and Melissa Holyoak.
That's right.
Oh, that kind of fits in with the tree talk over here.
Absolutely.
So you're having this conference. Is this where we're going to be able to find out about our history?
You'll learn skills, meet lots of people that can help you with your skills, and learn. There's lots of topics that we'll talk about. For the beginner to the more experienced, you can come and learn about DNA, how you use that in your research. You can learn if you have research back in the British Isles. We have someone, teaching that topic.
Are people going to be able to do the research themselves with what we're going to learn at this conference?
Yes, you'll take your information and then you won't be doing research that day.
Okay. But so you're not going to come out that day an expert.
Correct.
Well, you may already be an expert. That's the nice thing about the conference is that you can, if you've never done this before, the only thing you know is your grandmother's name. You can come and you'll learn the skills to go and do more research. But if you've been doing it for years, you can also come.
Okay, give me an example.
An example of.
Well, how am I going to research my history? Now I know where my family came from, but if I
Okay,
didn't,
good.
how would I go about finding out?
Debbie, talk a little bit about the beginning class.
So as you're probably familiar now because of advertising, there's so many things online now. Not everything is online, but lots of things are that were never dreamed of years ago. So we'll, of course, encourage people to, learn about those databases, how to access them, those kinds of things. But we do kind of we also offer beginning classes of, like, where do you start? Because you kind of got to start at the beginning, Who are your grandparents? Where were they born? Those kind of basics. And because you want to make sure you're documenting it
And then
correctly.
DNA testing can tell exactly where your roots were 200, 300, 400 years ago.
DNA can tell you a lot,
That's pretty amazing.
but not everything. but
But you
some
can-
good, strong clues.
But you can. Well, I've seen these ads on television where you can send for this little kit,
Right.
and what do? You send a hair in or scraping?
No, it's either saliva or one test uses like it looks like a little tiny toothbrush, and you scrape the inside of your cheek.
And then they tell you where you came from.
They can tell you who you might match, who is in the database, and how closely you're related, if you're first cousin level or further.
Okay, but we're going to find about all of this at the conference. When
Yes.
is it again?
Absolutely. October 7th.
Okay.
And it's all day. It's doors open at 7:30, but classes run from 8:30 to 3:30.
And how do you get in?
You have to register beforehand on GenCOMO.org.
GenCOMO.org.
But
and
you
that'll
can
have all the information.
absolutely, and you can register for one class or for the entire day. And the nice thing about it is it's all ages 12 and up. So bring
Okay.
your kids.
Thank you
and
so much.
be fun.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.